The plantation owner catches the enslaved cleaner studying in the dark, candlelight flickering across forbidden pages as his heavy boots thunder down the manor hallway. The trembling house servant is seen by the white master class as nothing more than breathing property, invisible, disposable, assumed to lack any intelligence beyond scrubbing floors and emptying chamber pots. Her expected fate, brutal whipping, sale to harsher conditions, or worse, the typical destiny for any enslaved person who dares reach beyond their station. But the sympathetic white lawyer visiting the plantation recognizes something different in her eyes, something that could change everything if given the chance. What the arrogant master doesn't know is that his house servant has been systematically documenting his illegal slave trading operations, gathering evidence that could expose a criminal network spanning multiple states and free hundreds of people. Will his discovery lead to her destruction? Or has she been playing a far more dangerous game than anyone imagined? Before we continue, comment where you are tuning in from. Sarah's calloused hands moved methodically across Master Whitmore's mahogany desk. Each careful dusting motion revealed another document beneath: cotton trading records, shipping manifests, names she recognized from the slave quarters. The study door remained closed. Whitmore conducted his evening business meetings here every Tuesday. Sarah had learned to time her cleaning perfectly. She arrived after the men finished their brandy. She left before anyone noticed her presence. Tonight felt different. The papers scattered across his desk contained more than usual business correspondence. Federal customs forms bore suspicious alterations. Dates had been changed, names scratched out and rewritten. Sarah paused her cleaning. Her eyes scanned the documents quickly. Years of secret practice had sharpened her reading skills far beyond what anyone suspected. The previous plantation owner's daughter had taught her letters and numbers before Sarah was sold away. That education remained her most guarded secret. The shipping records revealed disturbing patterns. Ships arriving from ports where slave trading had been banned for decades. Manifests listing cargo that didn't match the human cargo being unloaded. Sarah's stomach tightened as she recognized the system. Whitmore was importing enslaved people illegally. Footsteps echoed from the hallway. Sarah grabbed her cleaning cloth and resumed dusting. The door opened as Whitmore entered with two visitors. Sarah kept her head down and continued working silently. "The federal inspectors won't be a problem," Whitmore said to his guests. "My contacts at the customs house ensure smooth operations." The taller visitor nodded. "Your methods are impressive, Cornelius. Few men have your connections." "Money opens doors that conscience keeps closed," Whitmore laughed. "These people were born for labor. I'm simply ensuring they fulfill their purpose." Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she dusted the same spot repeatedly. She forced herself to appear invisible while absorbing every word. The men discussed bribes paid to federal officials, routes used to transport people from ships to plantations, forged papers that transformed free individuals into property. The conversation lasted 30 minutes. Sarah memorized names, dates, and amounts. When the visitors finally departed, she finished her cleaning and retreated to the slave quarters. Her small cabin provided little privacy. Marcus occupied the neighboring space. The older man had noticed Sarah's changing behavior over recent weeks. Tonight he confronted her directly. "You're taking risks," Marcus whispered through the thin wall. "Staying late in that house draws attention." Sarah remained silent. Trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. Even among the enslaved, secrets could become weapons in desperate hands. The next morning brought unexpected visitors. A well-dressed white man arrived with legitimate business credentials. Thomas Fletcher introduced himself as a potential investor interested in Whitmore's cotton operations. His manner seemed different from Whitmore's usual associates. Sarah served tea during their meeting. Fletcher's eyes briefly met hers. Something in his expression suggested recognition of her intelligence. Most white visitors looked through her as if she were furniture. Fletcher saw her as a person. Their conversation revealed Fletcher's background as a lawyer from Charleston. He asked pointed questions about Whitmore's business practices. His inquiries seemed designed to gather specific information rather than conduct casual business. Whitmore bragged extensively about his connections and methods. He described his operations with the confidence of someone who believed himself untouchable. Fletcher listened carefully and took detailed notes. After Fletcher departed, Whitmore summoned Sarah to his study. She expected punishment for some imagined transgression. Instead, he wore an expression of peculiar satisfaction. "I've been watching you, girl," Whitmore said. "You're different from the others, more attentive, more curious." Sarah kept her eyes lowered and remained silent. "I've decided to conduct an experiment," Whitmore continued. "I'm going to teach you to read and write, basic skills only, nothing too advanced for your kind." The announcement struck Sarah like lightning. Access to Whitmore's study on a regular basis meant access to his private correspondence, his business records, his criminal evidence. "This will prove to my associates that your people can achieve simple literacy but lack capacity for true intelligence," Whitmore explained. "You'll be living proof that education has natural limits based on breeding." Sarah nodded submissively while her mind raced with possibilities. Whitmore's arrogance had just handed her the perfect cover for gathering evidence against him. "We'll begin tomorrow evening," Whitmore declared. "You'll study here in my office under proper supervision." That night, Sarah lay awake planning her approach. She would need to appear genuinely ignorant while secretly documenting Whitmore's crimes. The balance required extreme care. Too much intelligence would expose her. Too little would waste the opportunity. Marcus confronted her again before dawn. "Something's changed," he insisted. "Master never shows interest in teaching anyone anything." Sarah finally decided to trust him partially. "He wants to prove we can't learn beyond basic skills," she whispered. "But I already know how to read." Marcus's eyes widened. "That's dangerous knowledge." "More dangerous for him than for me," Sarah replied. "His papers contain information that could free hundreds of people." "What kind of information?" Sarah described what she had observed. Illegal importing operations, bribed officials, forged documentation. Marcus listened with growing amazement. "You're planning something beyond escape," he realized. "I'm planning justice," Sarah confirmed. The next evening arrived quickly. Sarah entered Whitmore's study carrying herself with apparent nervousness. Whitmore had prepared basic reading materials and writing supplies. He seemed genuinely excited about his social experiment. "Tonight we begin your education," he announced. "Soon my friends will witness firsthand the intellectual limitations of your race." Sarah nodded obediently while her eyes cataloged every document within reach. Her real education was about to begin. Sarah stumbled deliberately over simple words during her third lesson. Whitmore smiled with satisfaction as she pretended to struggle with basic sentences. His associates watched from leather chairs, nodding approvingly at his educational experiment. "See how she labors over elementary concepts," Whitmore announced to his guests. "This proves their mental capacity reaches natural limits." Sarah kept her expression blank while memorizing every face in the room. Federal Judge Harrison, Customs Inspector Mills, Port Authority Chairman Davies, all men whose signatures appeared on the forged documents she had been secretly copying. After the guests departed, Sarah remained in the study longer than usual. Whitmore had left his correspondence drawer slightly open. She carefully extracted shipping manifests and financial records. Her practiced eyes scanned quickly while her hands continued the motions of organizing his desk. The documents revealed operations extending far beyond simple illegal importing. Whitmore was systematically kidnapping free individuals and selling them into slavery. Birth certificates were altered, freedom papers destroyed. Entire families disappeared into his network. Thomas Fletcher's visits became more frequent. He always requested private meetings with Whitmore to discuss potential investments. Sarah served refreshments and listened carefully to their conversations. Fletcher asked specific questions about shipping routes and documentation procedures. During one such meeting, Fletcher deliberately knocked over his teacup. Sarah rushed to clean the spill. As she knelt beside his chair, he whispered almost inaudibly, "Library tomorrow. Midnight?" Sarah's hands never paused in their cleaning motions. She gave no sign of having heard anything unusual. Fletcher continued his business discussion as if nothing had occurred. The plantation library remained unused except for Sarah's cleaning duties. She arrived at midnight to find Fletcher waiting in the shadows. His entire demeanor had changed from the polished businessman persona he displayed during daylight hours. "You understand what's happening here," Fletcher said quietly. It wasn't a question. Sarah nodded carefully. Trust remained dangerous even with potential allies. "I represent people working to end operations like Whitmore's," Fletcher continued. "We need evidence that will hold up in federal court." "What kind of evidence?" Sarah asked. Fletcher explained the legal requirements for prosecution: original documents, witness testimony, financial records proving bribery. The scope of evidence needed seemed overwhelming. "I can access his private files during our lessons," Sarah offered. "That's not enough. We need you to copy everything systematically. Can you write well enough for legal documentation?" Sarah hesitated before revealing the truth about her education. Fletcher listened with growing amazement as she described her hidden literacy skills. "Emma Hartwell taught me," Sarah explained. "The plantation owner's daughter before I was sold. She showed me literature, mathematics, legal concepts. Said knowledge was the only thing they couldn't take away." Fletcher's eyes widened with recognition. "Emma Hartwell is my cousin. She contacted our network years ago asking us to watch for a young woman named Sarah with exceptional intelligence." The revelation struck Sarah like lightning. Emma had been planning Sarah's rescue for years. Every skill Emma had taught her was preparation for this moment. "Emma said you had natural brilliance beyond anything she'd seen," Fletcher continued. "She predicted you'd find a way to fight back when the opportunity arose." Sarah felt tears threatening but forced them back. Emotion was a luxury she couldn't afford. "What do you need me to do?" she asked. Fletcher outlined their strategy. Sarah would continue her education charade while systematically copying Whitmore's most incriminating documents. Fletcher would coordinate with federal authorities to prepare for arrests. Timing would be crucial. Their alliance accelerated evidence gathering. Sarah's nightly lessons became opportunities for extensive documentation. She developed a system of hiding copied papers in different locations around the plantation. Marcus helped create distractions when needed. The breakthrough came during a dinner party Whitmore hosted for his criminal associates. Sarah served throughout the evening while the men discussed their operations openly. She memorized names, dates, and financial amounts while appearing completely invisible to the guests. After the party, Sarah discovered Whitmore had left his safe partially open. Inside were the most damaging documents yet: contracts with federal officials, payment records for bribes, lists of free individuals targeted for kidnapping. She worked frantically to copy everything before dawn. Her hands cramped from extensive writing, but she pushed through the pain. These documents could free hundreds of people and expose corruption reaching the highest levels of government. Marcus found her hiding the copied papers before sunrise. "This is bigger than we imagined," Sarah whispered, showing him the evidence. Marcus studied the documents with growing horror. "These names include people from our former plantation, people we knew were born free." "Whitmore's network spans multiple states," Sarah explained. "They're not just importing enslaved people illegally, they're creating new slaves from free populations." The scope of the crimes demanded immediate action. Sarah arranged another midnight meeting with Fletcher to present her findings. His reaction confirmed the severity of what she had uncovered. "This evidence could collapse their entire operation," Fletcher said after reviewing the documents. "But we need one more piece: proof of Whitmore's direct involvement in the kidnapping operations." "He keeps those records in his bedroom safe," Sarah replied. "I've never been able to access that area." "Then we need to create an opportunity," Fletcher decided. The plan they developed required precise timing and considerable risk. Sarah would need to access Whitmore's private quarters during a planned distraction. The evidence gathered there would complete their case against him. Sarah understood the dangers involved. Discovery would mean certain death, but the opportunity to save hundreds of lives outweighed her personal safety. Emma's education had prepared her for exactly this moment. The final phase of their mission was about to begin. Rebecca Whitmore stood outside her father's study door listening to voices within. The conversation chilled her blood. Names of free families, plans for their capture, payment schedules for corrupt officials. She had suspected something was wrong for months. The nighttime visitors, the hushed conversations, the way her father's mood shifted whenever federal inspectors were mentioned. Now she knew the truth. Her father was a monster. Rebecca retreated to her bedroom and pulled out a hidden collection of letters. She had been corresponding secretly with Thomas Fletcher for 6 months, not about business investments as her father believed, about ending the horror happening under their roof. The letters revealed Rebecca's true purpose. She had contacted Fletcher's abolitionist network after discovering evidence of her father's crimes. Every piece of information Sarah had gathered came through access Rebecca had carefully orchestrated. The naive daughter persona was perfect cover. Whitmore never suspected his own child was feeding intelligence to his enemies. Rebecca's tears during family dinners weren't from feminine sensitivity. They came from knowing what her father had done to innocent people. Sarah's next lesson provided the opportunity for contact. Rebecca entered the study carrying tea, while Sarah pretended to struggle with simple arithmetic. Whitmore excused himself to retrieve additional teaching materials from his office upstairs. "I know what you're doing," Rebecca whispered the moment they were alone. Sarah's hands froze over her writing slate. Discovery by Whitmore's daughter could destroy everything. "Thomas Fletcher is my contact," Rebecca continued quickly. "We've been working together for months. Your evidence gathering has been invaluable." The revelation shattered Sarah's understanding of the situation. Rebecca had been protecting and enabling their mission from the beginning. Every opportunity to access documents, every distraction that prevented discovery, every piece of crucial timing. "Why?" Sarah asked. "Because what my father does is evil," Rebecca replied. "I won't inherit wealth built on stolen lives." Footsteps approached from the hallway. Rebecca resumed her casual demeanor while Sarah returned to her arithmetic practice. Whitmore entered carrying additional books and materials. "Rebecca wanted to observe your progress," Whitmore explained to Sarah. "She's curious about our educational experiment." Rebecca smiled sweetly at her father while her stomach turned. The man she had loved and respected her entire life was a criminal whose actions destroyed hundreds of families. After the lesson ended, Rebecca arranged a 3-way meeting with Sarah and Fletcher. They gathered in the abandoned plantation chapel at midnight. The alliance between the 3 conspirators was finally complete. "We have enough evidence to prosecute," Fletcher announced. "But we need perfect timing for the arrests." Rebecca provided crucial intelligence about her father's schedule. He was planning a dinner party for his criminal associates in 1 week. Every major figure in the operation would attend. Federal marshals could arrest the entire network simultaneously. "The guest list includes Judge Harrison, Inspector Mills, and Chairman Davies," Rebecca reported, "plus 6 other men involved in the kidnapping operations." Fletcher's eyes lit up with satisfaction. "Simultaneous arrests will prevent them from warning each other or destroying evidence." Sarah felt the weight of approaching justice. Months of careful planning were about to culminate in victory. But she also sensed the danger increasing. Whitmore had grown suspicious of Fletcher's frequent visits. "He's investigating Thomas's background," Rebecca warned. "He asked me to help research his business credentials." The timeline suddenly compressed. They needed to complete their evidence gathering before Whitmore discovered Fletcher's true identity. Sarah would have to access his bedroom safe during the dinner party. Marcus volunteered to create the necessary distraction. "Kitchen fire during the meal," he suggested. Nothing dangerous but enough chaos to empty the house. Rebecca would ensure Sarah could reach the bedroom undetected. Fletcher would coordinate with federal marshals for the arrests. Every detail required perfect execution. The dinner party arrived with unseasonable warmth. Sarah served the first course while memorizing faces around the table. These men controlled the lives of thousands through corruption and violence. Tonight their reign would end. Marcus's distraction worked flawlessly. Smoke from a controlled grease fire sent guests and staff rushing to the kitchen area. Sarah slipped upstairs while everyone focused on the emergency. Whitmore's bedroom safe stood open. He had been reviewing documents before dinner and forgot to secure them. Sarah photographed her opportunity and began copying frantically. The safe contained the most damaging evidence yet: personal correspondence with federal officials, payment receipts for specific bribes, detailed lists of kidnapped individuals with their original identities and sale prices. Sarah's hands moved quickly across the papers. Each document represented lives destroyed and families separated. The scope of Whitmore's crimes extended beyond her worst fears. Voices approached from the hallway. The fire had been contained and guests were returning to their meal. Sarah grabbed the most crucial documents and prepared to flee. Rebecca appeared in the doorway with a warning gesture. Whitmore was coming upstairs to wash his hands before dessert service. Sarah needed to hide immediately. The bedroom closet provided temporary shelter. Sarah crouched behind hanging clothes while clutching the copied documents. Whitmore entered and moved directly to his wash basin. Through a gap in the closet door, Sarah watched him examine his safe. He noticed the slight disarray of papers but attributed it to his own haste before dinner. After washing, he returned downstairs without securing the safe. Sarah emerged from hiding with her evidence complete. The final pieces of their case against Whitmore's criminal network were now in hand. Federal marshals would arrive within hours to execute the arrests. Rebecca met Sarah in the hallway with news that changed everything. "They're planning to move operations tomorrow," Rebecca whispered urgently. "Father received word that federal inspectors are coming to the region." The timeline collapsed completely. Justice would arrive tonight or not at all. Federal marshals surrounded the plantation house as dessert was being served. Sarah watched from the kitchen window as uniformed men took positions around every exit. Fletcher had coordinated perfectly with law enforcement. The dining room erupted in confusion as marshals entered with arrest warrants. Whitmore's face transformed from confident host to panicked criminal in seconds. His guests attempted to flee but found every escape route blocked. "Cornelius Whitmore, you're under arrest for illegal slave trading and conspiracy to defraud federal customs," the lead marshal announced. Whitmore's eyes darted around the room seeking explanation. "This is preposterous. I demand to know who made these accusations." Sarah stepped forward from the kitchen doorway. Her posture had changed completely. No longer the submissive servant, she stood tall with quiet dignity. "I did," Sarah said clearly. The dining room fell silent. Whitmore stared in disbelief as Sarah approached carrying a leather portfolio filled with documented evidence. "Months of your business correspondence, financial records, shipping manifests, witness testimonies," Sarah explained. "Everything needed to prove your crimes." Whitmore's face contorted with rage and confusion. "You can barely write your own name. This is impossible." "I've been able to read and write for years," Sarah replied calmly. "Emma Hartwell taught me literature, mathematics, and legal concepts before you bought me." The revelation shattered Whitmore's worldview. The woman he had considered intellectually inferior had systematically destroyed his criminal empire using skills he never knew she possessed. "Your arrogance made this possible," Sarah continued. "You gave me access to your private study. You bragged about your crimes in my presence. You never imagined I could understand and document everything." Fletcher stepped forward with additional evidence. Sarah's intelligence gathering exposed a criminal network spanning 6 states. "Your operation enslaved over 400 free individuals and bribed dozens of federal officials. Judge Harrison attempted to assert his authority from across the room. "I won't be arrested by some elaborate hoax orchestrated by slaves and abolitionists." The lead marshal produced Harrison's own correspondence from Sarah's evidence collection. "Your signature appears on forged customs documents. Your bank records show payments from Whitmore's accounts. The evidence is overwhelming." One by one, each conspirator was confronted with proof of their crimes. Inspector Mills, Chairman Davies, Port Authority officials, corrupt judges. Sarah's meticulous documentation had captured them all. Rebecca stood beside Sarah as her father was placed in shackles. Tears streamed down her face, but her voice remained steady. "I provided access to his private papers," Rebecca announced. "I contacted Thomas Fletcher months ago when I discovered what my father was doing." Whitmore stared at his daughter in shock. "You betrayed your own family." "You betrayed hundreds of families," Rebecca replied. "I chose justice over loyalty to evil." Marcus appeared in the doorway leading other enslaved people from the plantation. The marshals had brought immediate emancipation papers for everyone held illegally on Whitmore's property. "We're free," Marcus announced with wonder in his voice. "All of us." The arrests continued through the night. Sarah's evidence led to coordinated raids across multiple states. Telegraph messages confirmed captures in Charleston, Savannah, and New Orleans. The entire criminal network was falling apart. Sarah spent hours providing testimony to federal prosecutors. Her detailed knowledge of the operation impressed veteran investigators. They had never seen such comprehensive evidence gathered by a single individual. "Your documentation skills are exceptional," the chief prosecutor noted. "We could use someone with your abilities on our staff." Fletcher smiled with pride as he watched Sarah transform from hidden servant to respected witness. Emma Hartwell's faith in her cousin's intelligence had been completely vindicated. 6 months later, Sarah worked in Fletcher's expanded law office as a legal researcher and advocate. Her insights into criminal operations had helped prosecute dozens of corruption cases. Former slaves sought her assistance with freedom papers and family reunification. Rebecca had donated her inheritance to establish schools for formerly enslaved people. She taught alongside Sarah, helping others learn the reading and writing skills that had made justice possible. Marcus led a community of freed individuals who had purchased Whitmore's former plantation at government auction. They were transforming the land from a place of bondage into a thriving settlement focused on education and mutual support. Whitmore himself had been sentenced to 20 years in federal prison. His criminal network's collapse led to the liberation of over 800 people who had been held illegally. Federal laws were strengthened to prevent similar operations. Sarah often returned to the settlement to teach reading classes in the same building where Whitmore had conducted his criminal meetings. The irony was not lost on anyone who attended her lessons. Her students ranged from young children to elderly adults who had never been allowed to learn. Sarah used the same books that had started her own educational journey years earlier with Emma Hartwell. "Knowledge is power," Sarah told each new group of students. "Nobody can take it away once you possess it." The evening classes filled quickly as word spread about Sarah's teaching methods. She emphasized practical skills like reading contracts, understanding legal documents, and managing personal finances. Every lesson was designed to prevent future exploitation. Marcus often joined the classes to share his own experiences and encourage struggling students. The sense of community that developed was stronger than anything the plantation had known during its dark period. Sarah's story spread throughout abolitionist networks as an example of how intelligence and determination could overcome seemingly impossible odds. Speaking requests arrived from across the country. Each evening, as she prepared lessons for the next day, Sarah remembered Emma Hartwell's words about education being the key to freedom. That promise had been fulfilled beyond anything either of them could have imagined. The cycle of learning continued. As Sarah's former students began teaching others, multiplying the impact of education throughout their communities.